Trapped with monsters. One night in the most violent prison on earth. The night the lights went out. Before we dive into this nightmare, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear is not a movie. It happened. And it's darker than any story you've ever seen on this channel. The Louisiana State Penitentiary, better known as Angola, was never built for redemption. It was built for containment. Miles of razor wire stretched across old plantation fields, where convicts once labored under the same sun that once watched over slaves. By 1999, Angola was a powder keg, overcrowded, brutal, and ruled by gangs that made their own laws behind concrete walls. When the sun set that April night, no one expected it to become one of the bloodiest nights in prison history. In Cell Block C, the air was thick with the smell of bleach and sweat. Guards made their rounds with the usual indifference, unaware that 3 inmates were planning something desperate, something suicidal. One of them was Raymond "Red" Jackson, a lifer with nothing left to lose. He had spent 18 years inside, long enough to learn that surviving here meant becoming worse than the monsters around you. At 9:13 p.m. the power flickered. Just a second, a blink, but in that second every man in the tier felt it. Then came the scream. A guard's voice, sharp and guttural, echoing down the hallway before it was choked off. The emergency lights buzzed to life, casting a dim red glow across the concrete floor. What Red saw next burned itself into his mind forever. Officer Mayfield, one of the few guards who treated inmates like humans, was on the ground, a knife buried deep in his neck. Panic erupted. Some inmates cheered. Others froze. Red didn't move. He saw what came next. 2 inmates dragging the guard's body into a utility room, blood streaking across the floor. Then the shout started, "We got the keys." The entire block lit up with chaos. Doors clanged. Metal on metal. Within minutes, the prisoners had control of the corridor. Radios crackled from the guard tower as alarms blared across the facility. Angola was under siege from within. Red didn't join them. He went the other way, deeper into the shadows, trying to find a place to hide. He knew the riot wouldn't end cleanly. When the power cut again, plunging the block into darkness, he realized something worse. The killers weren't just trying to escape. They were hunting. He moved through the hallway, each step echoing too loudly, each breath tasting like copper. From the far end he heard a whisper. "Red, that you?" It was Marcus, his old cellmate, a wiry man with eyes that never stopped moving. "They're saying the guards are locking down every exit. We're trapped in here. Trapped with killers. Trapped with monsters." The riot spread like wildfire, fire alarms blaring, smoke filling the air. Through the barred windows, Red could see the faint blue flashes of police lights outside the perimeter fence. Angola was on lockdown. And then, somewhere above them, a voice shouted over the intercom, hoarse and panicked. "They got the hostages in C block. 2 officers down." Red's hands trembled. He wasn't one of the killers. He just wanted to live long enough to see the sunrise. But in Angola, innocence didn't matter. The guards would come, and when they did, they wouldn't ask questions. As Red turned the corner, he heard something that froze him in place, muffled sobbing. He looked through a cell door left half open, and saw another inmate kneeling beside a guard, his hands shaking, whispering something over and over. "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it." Before Red could step closer, the lights came back on, bright, blinding, and for the first time that night he saw the walls for what they really were. A slaughterhouse painted in red. Outside, sirens screamed. Inside, the monsters were loose. And when Red turned to run, he realized the lock on his own cell had been jammed shut from the outside. He was trapped. Trapped with monsters. The hostage hour. Before we continue, hit that like button, because the deeper we go into this story, the darker it gets. What happened next inside Angola wasn't a riot anymore. It was survival, and every man was on his own. The sirens outside had turned the prison into a war zone of echoing chaos. Floodlights from the guard towers cut through the night fog, slicing across the yard where bodies lay still, motionless. Inside C block, the tension was suffocating. Smoke from burning sheets drifted through the corridors, clinging to the walls like ghosts that refused to leave. Red pressed himself against the cold cement, his heart pounding so loud he could barely hear the shouting. "Get them on their knees," someone yelled down the hall. There were guards in there, hostages. Red knew one of their voices, Officer Daniels. He'd been the only one who ever smuggled extra food trays to starving inmates. Now Daniels was begging for his life. The ringleader of the riot was Luther Kane, a 6'4" ex-gang enforcer serving 2 life sentences. Luther wasn't a man, he was a storm. His body was covered in scars, and his eyes had that empty, dead look of someone who'd seen the world burn and smiled at the flames. "Tonight," Luther roared, "Angola belongs to us." Red watched from behind a wall as Luther and two others tied the guards' hands with electrical cords. They forced them to kneel beside the railing. One of the hostages whimpered. Luther smirked. "You scared? You should be." Red's stomach twisted. He knew what came next. He couldn't watch it happen again. He needed a way out, but every corridor led back to more chaos. The control room was sealed off, the doors welded shut from the inside. And yet Red wasn't alone in his fear. Marcus found him again, limping, his face streaked with blood. "They're losing it, Red," Marcus whispered. "The riot's out of control. Even the gang leaders can't stop it now." "What about the hostages?" Marcus hesitated. "They're bargaining." But Luther, he ain't planning to bargain. Through the smoke, Red saw something flicker, a reflection of metal. Luther's knife. He wasn't bluffing. The guards' lives were running on borrowed time. But then, something unexpected happened. A second group of inmates, not loyal to Luther, stormed in from the other side. They weren't trying to rescue the hostages. They wanted control. The riot had turned into a war between inmates, and the guards were pawns in the middle. Gunshots cracked. Not from police, from homemade weapons stolen off the infirmary wing. The noise bounced off the concrete walls like thunder. Inmates screamed. Some ran, others charged. It was chaos in every direction. Red dove for cover under a table as bullets tore through the hallway. When he lifted his head, he saw Daniels, the guard, crawling toward him, bleeding from the shoulder. "Help me, please." Red hesitated. If he helped, Luther would see. If he didn't, Daniels would die. In Angola, mercy could get you killed, but something inside him shifted. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the memory of the guard who once called him sir. He dragged Daniels behind a metal locker, pressing his shirt against the wound. "Don't move," he whispered. From across the block, Luther saw them, and locked eyes with Red. That look wasn't just anger. It was betrayal. "You think you're a hero now, Red?" Luther shouted. "Ain't no heroes in hell." He fired his stolen gun. The bullet missed by inches, shattering glass above Red's head. Outside, SWAT teams had surrounded the prison. Negotiators were screaming over radios. "We have hostages inside C block. 2 confirmed dead. Repeat, 2 guards down." The world outside was preparing for a siege. But inside, Red was already living through one. He knew there was no walking out of this untouched. If the SWAT team came in shooting, they'd kill anyone standing, guards, inmates, it didn't matter. He had one choice left: escape before sunrise or die inside with the rest. But when Red tried to move Daniels toward a back exit, the power went out again, and this time it stayed out. The hallways went pitch black. The sound of boots, screams, and breathing filled the dark. And then from somewhere close, Luther's voice echoed, low and cold. "Red, I can hear you." The morning after hell. Before we finish this nightmare, smash that subscribe button, because this is where survival meets judgment. What you're about to hear is the part of the story Angola never wanted the world to know. The darkness inside C Block wasn't just the absence of light, it was a living thing. It crawled over the walls, swallowing the screams and swallowing men whole. Red held his breath, trying to listen through the pounding in his ears. Somewhere nearby, Luther was hunting him. The only light came from the dim red glow of the emergency exit sign, flickering like a dying heartbeat. Daniels was fading fast, his breath shallow. Red tore a strip from his jumpsuit and tied the wound tighter. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Sun'll be up soon." But Daniels didn't answer. His eyes had rolled back, lost somewhere between pain and sleep. A metallic sound cut through the air, footsteps on broken glass. Luther's voice came from the dark, calm and taunting. "You think you can hide behind them walls, boy? Angola's got no corners safe for traitors." Red's pulse spiked. He slid silently toward the laundry chute, the one spot the guards never locked because it led nowhere, just a crawl space full of mold and rust. He half-dragged Daniels toward it, wincing as every movement echoed like a gunshot. Then, from the shadows, Luther emerged, the glint of his knife catching the emergency light. He looked like a ghost made of hate. His shirt was soaked in blood, not his. His hands trembled, but his grin was steady. "You had a choice, Red," he said. "You chose the wrong side." Before Luther could lunge, a loud crash came from upstairs. The front gate had been breached. SWAT teams had entered the block. Flashbangs exploded down the corridor, blinding white light ripping through the dark. The sound was deafening. Red didn't think. He shoved Daniels into the chute and dove after him just as bullets started flying again. The chute dropped them hard into a pile of dirty laundry below. Red's vision spun, but he forced himself up, dragging Daniels toward the maintenance tunnel. The smell of iron, smoke, and blood filled the air. For the first time in hours he could hear something else, a voice on the intercom. All inmates lie on the ground. Now. But not everyone obeyed. Shots echoed above. The riot was ending, but the killing wasn't. Red found a half-open grate at the end of the tunnel. Crawling through, he saw the dawn breaking over Angola, a dull red sky over barbed wire. The fields stretched endlessly, silent now except for the hum of helicopters. He laid Daniels on the dirt just outside the maintenance exit. The guard was still alive barely. "You're gonna make it," Red said, even though he didn't believe it himself. Daniels blinked weakly. "Why'd you help me?" Red hesitated, staring at the ground. "'Cause nobody helped me when I needed it." Before he could say more, the heavy sound of boots surrounded him. Flashlights pinned him to the ground. "Don't move," shouted a SWAT officer. Red froze, hands raised. In that instant, Luther appeared behind him, staggering, bleeding, gun in hand. The officer saw movement and fired once. Luther dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. His body hit the dirt next to Red, eyes open, still burning with hate. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the wind moved through the razor wire. Later, after the smoke cleared, the news called it the Blood Night of Angola. 7 inmates dead, 2 guards injured, 1 hostage saved. Red was taken back into custody, alive but changed. He didn't speak for weeks. When investigators asked him what happened inside C Block, he just said, "There were monsters in there. But the worst one wasn't Luther." They asked, "Then who was it?" Red looked up, eyes hollow. The prison itself. Months later, Red disappeared during a transfer. Official reports claimed an administrative error, but inside Angola, rumors spread like wildfire that he'd escaped through the same tunnel he once used to save a man's life. Some say he's dead. Others say he's still out there, living quiet, never speaking of that night again. But every year on the anniversary of the riot, a message appears scrawled on the wall of C Block. "You can lock up men, but you can't lock up hell." The guards paint over it each time, and each year